Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the TriStar Sports Show. Jamie and I are here back for episode 20, where we're going to recap the Vols Mississippi State football game, get into this upcoming matchup, which there's a lot to talk about with that one coming up this Saturday against Georgia. Recap, what was it? Last week, week 11 now.
Yep, we're in week 12.
So we'll recap week 11 and then all things week 12 and wrap it up with our parlay of the week. So with all that
Yes,
being
sir.
said, Jamie, what is your thoughts on the Mississippi State game?
Scary. I mean, not the score, not the box score, nothing like that was scary. We were in control for pretty much the whole game, but just we said last week, get in and get out with no injuries, and we didn't exactly do that. So it was a little worrying. I thought we played by far, at least in my opinion, our best half of football in that first half. I mean, we were connecting on deep throws. We were dialed in the first half, and then uh, kind of all went to hell in a handbasket at halftime. It seemed like. Luckily, we have the depth and the backups to go out there and get it done in the second half. But I don't know.
I mean, there's a couple definitely takeaways from that game. One being Gaston Moore is a man with no fears, is what it seems like, because he goes every time he steps on the foot on the football field, he's slinging that thing as far as he can and hoping for the best, which did pay off a couple of times with pass interference calls. So I mean, kept our offense afloat. And another thing is, shout out to Dylan Sampson. He got hurt in that game, and I think he saw Nico went down and realized that someone's going to have to go in this game and take over, and which he
Right.
did. He finished with a career high in rushing yards. What was it, about a
150.
buck 50?
Yeah.
And
Uh,
so that's back to back weeks where he keeps beating his own record of rushing yards. Shout out to the offensive line. I think there was 0 sacks from what I've seen,
hey, keeping them
and
clean.
good day on the rushing side of things. Peyton Lewis started to take some quality reps. The only thing about Peyton Lewis is I know he got stopped on that 4th and goal from like the 1 early in that game where we could have probably got up another score and just put him away earlier.
Right.
Um, if you look back on that play, everyone just bunched inside. He could have bounced it right outside for a walk-in touchdown, but he tried to muscle his way in there. Which, I mean, he's a freshman. Stuff happens. Not the end
He's
of the
trying.
world.
He's trying to do what he thinks the coach wants him to do, and just keep it north and south. And
I mean, hindsight's 2020. If he was to bounce outside and got tripped up, people would be mad that he didn't just punch it up the gut and hope for the best. But
exactly, he's saying, yeah, he's trying to stay within the system, which I can't blame him for. But I think he's a good player.
no, he is, and he'll have another big game coming up this week because I think Deshaun Bishop is ruled out, so he's going to continue to have to grow. We saw a little bit of Cam Seldon, which we haven't really seen much of this season. That's a name that we probably thought that we would see a lot more going into the season.
I agree.
Then he obviously due to injury, and then Bishop performing well, and apparently Peyton Lewis playing well because I mean he's getting the carries instead of Seldon. So
Right. Which, I mean, to be fair, and no discredit to Lewis or Sampson or even Bishop, but I mean, in our offense, we're forcing a lot of guys, a lot of defenses to spread out, and you can't exactly load the box against us. So it's I'm not surprised to see a lot of our running backs getting good quality runs in games.
I mean a lot of that goes to the offensive line.
Right.
They have pretty much been the lights out the last few weeks. When they were banged up early this season, there was some question marks of why it was looking a little bit rough. If you go back and watch the Arkansas game, it's night and day from from that unit. Which I mean, that was the first game back, first SEC game for Lance Hurd, and I don't think he was fully healthy. I saw a stat today that in the last 2 weeks against Kentucky and Mississippi State, I think out of 80 passing dropbacks, I think he only allowed 2 QB pressures, and
Dang.
I don't think either one was a sack. So I mean, that's really good for your left tackle
Right. Absolutely.
because they'll counter pressure if they even get remotely close to him. So
Yeah.
So that's
I
good
mean,
on his
hey,
part.
big boys
I
up
would
front
I
getting
would
it done.
I mean, personally, I was in the stadium last Saturday. I know you weren't able to be there, but there was a lot of confusion of why Nico did not come out in the second half. I mean, obviously, we know the answer now, but which even now, this seems like there's still a little bit of questions of what really went on.
Yeah,
They just ruled it. They just I was the only reason I found out what was going on is y'all were texting in a group chat of ours, and they listed it on the TV as an upper body injury, which is probably the most vague thing you could have ever said. Um, I'm I'm assuming they didn't want to label it as concussion because you're pretty much risking ruling yourself out for probably the next week if you say it's a concussion. So,
right.
I
Has it
mean,
been
they just
officially ruled as a concussion at this point?
no, but he's been in concussion protocol. So
Yeah,
whatever
that's
that all
weird.
means. I mean, if he was having a concussion, he wouldn't be practicing this week,
Yeah,
um, or at least not to the extent that he has been. A report came out today. If you're listening to this, we're filming on Thursday night. A report came out today that he's expected to play, so that's good news.
it is.
But I don't really know where the confusion came in because Heupel, since post game of the Mississippi State game, has said multiple times that he's going to be good to go. So I don't really know how we got to this point of everybody wondering if he's good to go or not.
Just
I know there was
BBS, man.
that, and there was that guy nicknamed the Bear that used to work for ESPN. I know he came out and was saying that he has sources that know that this was a bad concussion. He has no way he's going to be playing this weekend against Georgia. So I think that kind of put everyone in the Tennessee fan base into a little bit of a frenzy of what on earth is going
Right,
on. Because if it's a bad concussion, why is he in full pads practicing with the team with loud noises? I don't know what logic that would follow.
right.
I mean, technically, still at this point, he could technically not play on Saturday. I mean, until you're
Yeah,
listed as the starter, there's no guarantees, but things are definitely trending in the right direction with that, which is good to hear. Believe it or not, though, I mean, I wasn't fully all out on the Vols if Gaston did play. I mean, you got to lean on that running game. But we're
absolutely.
getting a little bit ahead to Georgia. To wrap up things with Mississippi State, defense once again holding teams to under 20 points. That's a trend that we hope continues. Didn't think it would make it this far. I think
Not at all.
we were talking about that like in week 3 or 4, and we just thought it was going to
Yeah,
eventually die out. And we're still here. We're still doing it. Um, what else? Boo Carter played a good game. He's back there in the returning department now, punt
he
returns.
had a
Which
great game. He got a pick.
yeah, he got a pick, a couple tackles, and like I said, in the punt return department, um, I don't think he called for one fair catch that whole game, which was a little bit scary at times because we've seen Jermond McCoy have issues dropping the ball back there a couple times this year. I don't think it's actually been a turnover, but at least he muffed the punt.
Right,
So you're getting a little nervous when you see all those guys run down the field and he's just not calling for a fair catch.
I agree. I mean, he's one of those guys who's gonna probably scare you a little bit sometimes. He's a high risk, high reward kind of player.
Yeah, and there was times it paid off, and there was other times that he got lit up. But
Right.
I mean, I probably trust him the most back there due to the fact that he is a freshman, and his whole high school career he played both sides of the ball. So he
I believe he
recently
returned
played
too.
off. Oh, I'm sure he did. I have a hard time
Yeah.
believing they they didn't put him back there.
Right.
Um, so if there's a guy to do it, I mean, I think that's a good move there. And he's technically not your cornerback one, so you probably don't want to see Jermon McCoy suffer an injury on special teams. We don't want Boo
Exactly.
Carter to get hurt by any means, but there is technically a hierarchy of
Right.
of DBs. Max Gilbert had a great bounce back game.
He did. Amazing game.
Uh,
Congrats to him. I
completely
mean,
night.
kickers. Yeah, it's just a confidence thing, just a head. It's in get in their own head sometimes. Hopefully, this bleeds over into the Georgia game. We're probably gonna need him. I mean, yeah, confidence is key when it comes, especially when it comes to kicking.
I was really hoping he would have a few opportunities against Mississippi State. I didn't want him going into the Georgia game potentially riding off of that tough game he had against Kentucky, just for the fact that, like you said, confidence. It was pretty clear that he has the talent. He just probably, like some people like to call the yips. I mean, he just, no matter what he was doing out there, he wasn't going to make it just based off of what was going on up in his head. But I
Right.
mean, he drilled a 51-yarder like it was nothing last Saturday. I don't know if you saw he jumped up and down and gave like a crazy fist bump after it. You
I
could have
saw
sworn he just hit a game winner, but nope, it was in the middle of the game. But I mean that
that
had to
monkey
have
off your
felt good.
back.
I mean, he was probably so tired of walking out there the last couple of weeks and just hearing the 100,000 people kind of get quiet when he walks on the field because no one's really
Right.
excited that we're about to kick a field goal. But there's a lot of room for him to grow. I mean, if he's doing this as a freshman, I mean, he's not leaving to go to the draft early, so you get 4 years out of him, hopefully. So I don't know. I'm excited to see him
Absolutely.
grow.
So am I. Well, um, I guess we've covered Mississippi State. Would you like to get into the big game coming up on Saturday?
Yeah, so we're going from one Bulldog team to the next. We got Georgia or not coming to town. We're going to their place. Road game for the Vols, as we talked about earlier this season, don't typically go the way we want to in the Heupel era, unfortunately. Hopefully, we can kind of break that narrative. It's a night game in Athens at 7:30, I believe, on ABC, with that main crew calling that one with Herb Street and Fowler.
Game day.
Vols will be decked out in the stormtrooper outfits, so all white. Like you said, there's also game day going to be there. I don't know if
SEC
SEC
Nation.
Nation's also are they also going
Yep.
there.
Yep. We got both.
Josh Pate's bringing his show there. That means the Pat McAfee show will be there.
I think
It's
we
going to
should load
be.
up.
Uh, you don't have to tell me twice. I mean, I would have went down there in a heartbeat. Seems like this is the premier game this week. It's the only one of the only top 25 matchups, I believe, and so it's go big or go home. I think
Absolutely.
the ESPN and all that were kind of probably hoping that both teams would still be in the top 10. If you told me a few weeks ago that we would actually be ahead of Georgia going into this game, I would have been a little bit
Right.
confused of, especially coming off of that Texas win of theirs. But here we are. Things played out the way they have. I think one interesting coincidence or thing to note is the last time Georgia's lost to a team not named Alabama was like a 50 or 60 game streak, whatever it was that Ole Miss just broke.
Dang.
That was in 2016, which then followed with Tennessee going into Athens and Dobbs to
That's a
Jennings.
good.
You know the drill.
I like that stat. Um, Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe, I mean, barring something crazy happening, it's win and probably into the SEC championship. I know that if we
It's
tie with
not.
LSU, we lose the tiebreaker. That's what I heard.
I've seen websites come out and say that if we lose this, somehow, some way, Bama can make the conference championship over us, and LSU can't too, which makes no sense to me because I thought head to head was priority.
Right, head to
But I
head should
guess
take priority. So
it gets sticky when you haven't played everyone that's in this tiebreak. There's a potential nightmare scenario of the SEC of having like a 7-way tie. Of
yeah, the
I
I know
was
the
looking, into this. So
third tiebreaker's common opponents, which before the Alabama LSU
no,
game, they were saying
second
L
tiebreaker is common opponent, and then third, I believe, is
yeah,
opponent's win percentage.
yeah. Uh, so LSU beat Arkansas, which doesn't help us. But they lost to Alabama, and we
So,
beat Alabama.
so
So I'm not sure
kind of
where.
cancels out.
Right. I'm not sure where that goes from there.
So then I think the problem is that it's going to wins against certain win percentage, and I think
Opponent
us
win
we
percentage.
haven't. Yeah, I don't.
So
I don't know. It's a mess.
Bama.
The way I keep hurting my head trying to look at these conference standings, but one thing I keep reminding myself is like, why don't we just go and win in Athens so we can solve a lot of these problems?
Absolutely.
But
Yeah.
to answer your question, your original question, we do not clinch if we win Saturday.
Okay.
It would probably still come down to the Vanderbilt game unless some other teams lost this Saturday or next Saturday that would alter some things.
Okay. Understood. Uh, Either way, win this Saturday, like you said, solves a lot of things. Uh, Definitely helps our playoff chances. I mean, I don't know. I think that if Nico plays, which hopefully he will, I think he's trending. All things are trending towards him playing. I will personally be a lot more confident in the game, which I don't think is crazy take. Not nothing against Gaston Moore, but I mean, obviously, I want QB1 out there whenever we're playing a team like Georgia.
This show is not going to take any gas pipe slander. Okay, he if he's for some reason is in this game, I have a weird sense of confidence of somehow this going the way it shouldn't, which is I don't know if that's just the crazy delusional belief because we're 2 days away from game day, and as we know as Vol fans, as the week goes on, the more I'm convinced we score more points every week. And if Nico plays, I'm starting to get to that category where I don't. I think there is a realm of possibility where we can win by a few scores. I think that's not a crazy thing. The way Georgia's
Right.
offense has been performing, if we can just hit, I mean, I'm talking. We've been taking probably about 5 deep shots a game. If you hit on 2 or 3 of them,
Absolutely.
That's all you're really going to need to win this game. Assuming your defense does its thing that's been doing, and your running game
Right.
continues.
I know.
You don't need 6 or 7 shot plays to win you this game unless it turns into a crazy shootout, which I don't think
I
anyone
find it
predicts
hard to
that to
believe it
happen.
would. Hopefully, defense plays its game. We got to stop Georgia's deep pass. Seems like in the games they've lost, a lot of the common themes or struggled in. A lot of the common themes is they can't get their they want to take deep shots and they can't get their deep game going, and then you make Carson Beckett that second or third read, and that's where he's going to make his mistakes and turn the ball over.
Yeah, I mean, most of his turnovers have been just bad reads, like you said, thrown in a
Right.
double, triple coverage. It's not nothing like the receivers are screwing up or anything like that. Which I will say, the big difference between this year and years past with Georgia is they do lack some skill players on the outside, like they have in like years past. They don't have your
Yeah.
stud receivers, and
Bowers.
obviously, yeah, the Brock Bowers is a huge loss that they took from the last couple of years.
I've seen them
I don't know.
throw.
I mean,
I think namely in the Florida game, I saw them throw some of those tight end flat RPOs like they love to do whenever they had Bowers either on the goal line or in a short yardage situation where you could toss it out to him and you knew he'd go and get those tough yards. And whoever their tight end is now, I don't know him by name, but he'd actually he I think on the goal line one time against Florida, he got stuffed short, and that was either a third or fourth down. I mean, they just don't have. Not that their guys are bad by any means, because I'm sure they were 4 or 5 stars coming out of high school, but they don't have that guy like those guys who are gonna do stuff they shouldn't. I guess is the best way to put it.
and if you really look at those Georgia Bulldog teams that won the back-to-back national championships, there's really obviously they had good receivers and tight ends, but it wasn't the level of Alabama skill position. But the way they won
No,
games was Stetson Bennett did what he needed to do. He didn't turn the ball over. Obviously, he got better as his time was there, but he played well. They leaned on the running game and then offensive line, which they haven't had this year.
right.
Crazy stat is, which I don't know if you saw. I sent it earlier today. Dylan Sampson has outrushed the entire Georgia Bulldogs team.
That's crazy.
more rushing yards, more touchdowns, more yards per carry. And he's done that on less carries, obviously, because he's one guy compared to the whole team. So
Right.
that's a red flag for Georgia,
And they're banged up
especially
too.
with
I think Etienne's
they are.
questionable. Their
He'll
backup.
probably have to play due to the fact
Right.
that it looks like they're like three running backs in that room are listed as out. So I imagine Etienne's gonna play no matter what.
Right. Gonna be a good one. I'm excited for it. Huge game, huge implications is on all levels, whether that's conference or playoffs. I mean, really getting down to the nitty gritty here, and I think every team is in a must win situation or damn near a must win situation of just like you don't know how much those rankings are going to change if you lose one game. I mean, we saw Georgia drop from what 3 to 11 or something.
They're currently sitting at 12.
Okay, yeah,
However, in the playoff landscape, they're the first team out looking in because they're ranked 12th in the rankings, but according to the playoffs and the way that all works, Boise jumps them.
right,
So
exactly,
they're quote unquote 13th in the actual bracket.
right. Yeah, you really have to be a top 11 team because that's just assuming that Boise will not be. Which what's Boise at now? Um,
Um, they
because they were
might
12 last week
be.
and won.
They might. Funny enough, they might be like 11. It's kind of all backwards, just because what's kind of screwing it
Right.
up is BYU is ranked not in the top four, but they're
That's what
projected
it
the
is.
conference champion, and then they because I think four of the top five is Big Ten teams, and obviously only one Big Ten team can be in the top four.
Right.
So that's where it's all getting shifted around. That's why Tennessee is ranked seventh, but we're slotted at the 8th spot in the bracket. It's
That
just
pushes everyone back one spot. That makes sense. So yeah, Georgia would be the first team out right now. So it's I
which
mean,
luckily for Tennessee, I know Indiana and Ohio State play next weekend, so somebody has to lose that game, which helps. Ideally, that's a blowout in one way or the other. So because a close game, they're going to keep playing it off like they're
right.
both good teams. The same way that they kind of handled the Penn State Ohio State game. It was a 7-point game, so Penn State didn't really get hurt from it. But yeah, I mean, as far as Georgia goes, I mean, we opened as 9.5-point dogs, which I think is kind of a little bit baffling to me. And apparently, that's not factoring in the idea of Nico not playing. From what I've read, is that's what they're assuming he's playing, and that's the spread. Which I I don't know what the odds makers are necessarily thinking in this one. I think they're part of them is just so convinced with the Kirby Smart era that they're just going to find a way to win this game. But they also thought that a week ago, and they did not. So,
Yeah. I mean,
I mean,
hey Jackson Dart's still doing his thing. That hood's still up.
I mean, gotta win out. That's what he kept saying, and they're doing it right now. So I think that was
Yeah.
probably their hardest test left. I don't know who else they have to play. Obviously, Mississippi State with the Egg Bowl.
Yeah, they have the Egg Bowl, but hopefully
The SEC is an absolute mess, and
they have Florida and Mississippi State.
where we're probably going to get hurt as a conference is so many teams are going to have 2 losses, potentially 3, just because we all play each other and beat each other.
Right.
Is in the eyes of the committee, is are they gonna count those losses against these teams, despite the fact that they're playing good competition? I don't know. It's gonna be interesting to what they choose to do with the year one of this playoff format, because whatever they do this year is gonna be probably what they stick with, or if it goes horribly, they're gonna flip it upside down next year.
Right. I completely agree. Yeah, I could see 3 SEC teams making it. I don't know about 4.
In order to get 4, you'd probably need Texas to win out, beat A&M, go to the conference championship. I think you need Tennessee, beat
To beat
Georgia.
Texas, I think you would need
Not even if
Texas to
if they
lose.
if Tennessee wins out and goes to the SEC championship and gets their second loss in the SEC championship, they're still going to make it in.
Right.
I know there was talks about if Tennessee loses this game and they have 2 losses, that all of a sudden they're just like no shot they can make it unless a bunch of teams lose. That's what ESPN was kind of basically saying, which I don't necessarily agree with, but obviously I'm a little bit biased, just because they're
Right.
saying that our wins don't look as good now because NC State sucks and Oklahoma sucks and Kent
That's
State
valid.
sucks and UTC sucks. And I mean, that's kind of the truth, to be honest. Florida's not that good. Kentucky's not that good. Mississippi State's not that good.
Yeah,
The
like our
Bama win is
schedule,
nice.
but they're not what they were projected. I mean,
No, but they keep throwing Bama in this playoff conversation. So if Bama, all I know is at the end of this season, if Bama gets in the playoffs over us and we have the same amount of losses, Knoxville's going to rage because it's not going to be great. What was the point of playing them and beating them then? That's the way I see it.
right.
Which goes back to the conversation we were having earlier with the SEC standings. If Bama makes it to the conference championship over us because of somehow, some way, and it's like a 6-way tiebreaker, I think that's absolute baloney that can even happen. But
Yeah, we
is what
head
it
to head
is.
should
You
matter
you
first.
you got to control what you got to control and just win your games. Worry about
I
that
agree.
later because
Yep.
there's a lot that's going to happen. Like we've said in the next 3 weeks we have left. I wouldn't be shocked if there's another big upset or two, just to flip everything upside down one more time. I know Oregon goes to Wisconsin this week, which we'll talk about probably on this show. That's a very possible situation. I don't think it could happen, but there's been crazier this season consistently.
Jump
So,
around.
last thing about Georgia, let me think. If you honestly, where I was having a tough time today is if you match up our position group with the position group that they're going against, so say our wide receivers versus their DBs, O line versus D line, there's not many spots where I would say we lose that battle, and I really can't figure out because home field advantage should not give you an 11-point favoriting.
No.
I just don't understand that. I mean, I wish a Georgia fan could explain it to me because there's no way. Watching the
Georgia
way they've
bias.
played the last 6 weeks, I don't know how you sit there. I mean, you can watch. I know there was this 4 weeks in a row we didn't score in the first half. However, you can consistently see us the last 2 to 3 weeks trending upwards in the offensive department too.
Right.
Like you said earlier on this show, is I think Nico probably played arguably his best half of the year against
I think
Mississippi
he did.
State. I mean, eight completions for 174 yards and 2 touchdowns. I mean, did
Yep.
it with ease. So
I
I
think
don't
he
know.
absolutely played his best first half.
I mean, I'm convinced we're winning this game, and I don't even think that's the crazy bias in me. I just on paper, it really does scream Tennessee can win this game. I'm still trying to figure out what other people are thinking. I think it's just the logic of it's Kirby Smart. They're going to find a way. And I don't think that's a valid thing to say. It's not Nick
Right.
Saban. I mean,
We
it's a
just need
one of
Heupel to go
one.
out there and produce on the road.
I think that's also another part of it is so many people have seen us the last 3 to 4 years in the Heupel era just kind of collapse and fold on the road.
Right.
So I guess maybe that's part of it, which we just desperately haven't had a road game under the Heupel era where we had a big passing play to start out the game, just to like open everything up. It just seems like whatever we tried just hasn't worked. I guess you could say Oklahoma a little bit this year was probably a good one. There was that play to, I think, Thornton in like the first quarter where he took like a post route and just took it to the house. But other than that, I can't. I mean, all those games that we've lost on the road, I can't think of. We didn't start good in any of them, that's for sure.
No, I think that's a big thing with Heupel's offense is getting it started. Big thing for any offense. Coming out flat's a terrible thing to do as a football team in general.
Just trust in Eco, trust in Heupel, trust in Dylan Sampson and this offense line,
Right.
and I think we'll be okay.
Absolutely. I agree. Any score
Well,
prediction?
if I was to put a true score together, let me think. I think we hold them. I actually bet that we hold them under 24.5 points. I think the 20-point streak might come to an end this week, but not by much. I think it might be like 21 or
Yeah.
24 is what I could see them getting. So I'm going to go 21-34.
I'm going to say 24. I'm going to say close game 24-27.
Very well could be. I mean,
Yeah.
I think
I think it's gonna be a
we
good game.
get the way I kind of predicted that was I think so. I had us winning by like 13. I think we're up, say 6 points. Like we kicked a couple field goals throughout the game in the
Right.
fourth quarter, and we just put one on them in the last few minutes to kind of put them away. And that's the hope and that's the dream. So
Yeah. Hey, let's do it. Let's go take care of business.
I don't care what we win by. I took us money line, so just win by one.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, with that being done, would you like to get into other games that happened this past weekend?
Yeah, let's go to week 11. From my memory, not that crazy of a weekend of college football, correct?
Outside of the two big upsets, the two top five teams going down, no.
I can't believe I just forgot that. I feel like an idiot. But granted, Georgia, I mean, Ole Miss was a ranked opponent. It's not like they were
Right.
unranked. And then the other loss was Miami. The Miami one was the shock of the week. I'd
It
say that.
was. Georgia Tech going in there, or no, Georgia Tech was at home. It was uh, in Georgia. So that was a shock. But, I mean,
Although
if
I
you
will
look
say,
at
I
it,
think
Georgia Tech
I've
kind
been.
of – what were you saying?
I was gonna say I don't know. I haven't looked back on our last episode, but we might have sat here and said Georgia Tech might give them a run for their money. So
Yeah, we did. We said something about Georgia Tech beating Florida State. We said we don't think they'll win, but they could make it close. They made it close, all right, and they won. Um,
they sure did.
I mean, Cam Ward still had a good performance on paper. He's still probably a top two or three Heisman candidate, but luck runs out, and I think they've gotten a lot of lucky wins this year. I'm surprised they didn't. I was hoping that whenever they got that first loss, that the other two wins that weren't going to look as good all of a sudden, and they were going to drop like a lot in the rankings. But yeah, I mean,
I I think Cam Ward's Heisman stock probably dropped a little bit. I think what made him such a perennial Heisman contender was obviously they're winning games and he's putting up good numbers, but the way that he was kind of willing his team late in these
right.
games to find a way to win was kind of what was kind of putting him up in the rankings in that category. But now that we've seen him, no matter what he tried, he couldn't pull off a miracle against Georgia Tech. I mean, I still think he probably is going to end up being a finalist and get invited to New
Yeah,
York City.
I
But
agree.
I don't know if this is his award to win at this moment. But we'll have to see.
I personally think it's probably Gabriel at this point, if it's not Ginty. Um, just because one, the quarterback bias, two, they're undefeated, and three, he's still putting up good numbers. But yeah, we'll have to see. I think between Ginty, Travis Hunter, Ward, and Gabriel, I think it's going to go to one of those guys more than likely. Um, and do you only have
When
three guys go to New York, or is it
are,
five?
is it 5 or is it 3?
Well,
I
if it's
can't.
five, I wouldn't mind seeing Dylan Sampson march his way up there.
I think 3 might get invited to New York.
Okay, so one of those four
That's a
guys will
good.
probably get left out.
Yeah, I don't know. When are we gonna start getting Dylan Sampson conversations? That's what I want to know.
Hey, there's been whispers for a while now, but yeah. So you had two big teams go down. We kind of already talked about Georgia Ole Miss. Carson Beck just kind of almost threw that game away by himself. No discredit to Ole Miss; they played a good game, but the turnovers is definitely what sealed it for him. I mean, Jackson Dart was the leading rusher and leading passer in that game. If that tells you anything, they weren't, and he only had 50 rushing yards, so they weren't exactly like dominating the game. I just think it came down to they got more offensive possessions than Georgia did, and did something with them whenever they had the ball.
I know they sacked. I think they sacked Beck 5 times. Is what it was. I mean,
That
Ole
helps,
Miss's defense is very very good. If you look at the stats,
right?
them in Tennessee have been at the top of not only the conference but the country all year long.
Is that
Um,
is Barron at Ole Miss or Miami?
he's at Miami.
Okay,
Ole Miss is Walter Nolan went there.
yeah, Nolan's
I
there.
don't I don't know if he's healthy or playing. I don't know what the deal is. I haven't kept up with him, but which is kind of ironic because the two offensive minded coaches that over the last few years everyone said that can't coach a defense is
Top two defenses. Excuse me.
yeah kind of proving everyone wrong this year. Which the transfer portal is
Yeah,
a massive factor in that, and as well as
absolutely.
recruiting. So
And both of
and
those guys are
NIL money.
like people coaches, players coaches. Like Kiffin and Heupel, both of them, I'd say do very well in the transfer portal when it comes to stuff like that. But yeah,
But yeah,
other than that, I mean, not too much to write home about as far as the rest of the week goes. Indiana continues their undefeated miracle season, if you want to call it that. They beat Michigan by 5, which isn't a crazy win, but whenever you're undefeated, every win counts. Looks like their quarterback did come back last week. No more Taven Jackson. Um, and, and yeah, they got it done 20-15. BYU got a good scare in them. They only won by 1 against Utah, that in-state rivalry.
Utah had BYU beat, and
Really?
I went to bed thinking that they won. They were up by a couple couple scores, at least 10 points or something like that, and woke up to a lot of angry Utah people complaining about the refs and this and that. But yeah, I mean BYU found a way to win somehow. I mean their resume isn't great or bad. It's decent. I
Yeah.
think the issue with Indiana, like going back to what you was talking about them being undefeated. I don't think they've beaten a ranked team. Um, I think
Right.
there's 2 teams that they've played that are above 500 at this point. So that's not
That's
great
valid.
on their.
Yeah.
So if that's what I was going to circle it all back from the beginning of this episode, if Ohio State next week goes and beats Indiana by 30 points, I think it's going to hurt Indiana a hell of a lot more
Right.
than people think, just because they don't have much else to rely on as far as strength of schedule and
If you put them in with other one-loss teams, they should be towards the bottom of the one-loss team group.
right. I mean, they would have a they lost to a good team, but if they lost by a lot, then
Right.
that should push
Absolutely.
them out a little bit. So who knows? Who knows?
Yeah. we'll have to see. LSU, Alabama. Can we talk about that game? I mean, what happened to Death Valley at night?
Um,
They got
Death Valley
DeBoer
at
looking
night
like a good coach out there.
apparently Death Valley at night still can't stop a running quarterback the same way they lost at A&M 2 weeks ago. Milrow ran all over the place. They weren't doing anything crazy. LSU just
Yeah,
played really bad, really
he was a
bad.
rushing leader with 185 rushing yards. Holy cow,
Yeah, he
that's
quite
nuts
literally
for a
was.
quarterback.
That was the playbook was let Milrow run because I'm sure DeBoer went back and watched that A&M game and how LSU absolutely fell apart in the second half with the backup that can come in and run a little bit.
Right.
You would have thought they would have cleaned it up, especially knowing that Milrow is primarily a runner, but they didn't. I mean, 180 yards for a quarterback running in one game is absolutely absurd.
It is. That's crazy talk. I mean, hey, they got it done, and they got it done big time. They probably deserve to be right back up there in the playoff conversation, especially against a ranked opponent.
I mean,
But
it looks better on our part. It looks better on our
it
part if they
does,
keep
it
winning.
does, and it helps us out with the whole LSU tiebreaker, whatever. Um, yeah, Alabama getting it done, 42-13 against LSU. Our boy, in other news, our boy Ashton Genty had another 200 plus yard game. They only won by 7 against Nevada, but I mean, I think they're kind of separating themselves from the pack as the best non-group of non-power four team. So as long as they win their conference, then they should be a shoo-in for the playoffs, in my opinion. And I think it'll be really exciting to see Genty do this against, or see if he can do this against some actual like playoff competition.
Yeah, they actually had a pretty good scare in that game because Nevada, I believe, is not even 500 on the season. So that was a lot closer than they would have hoped. I mean, it wasn't
Right.
Genty's fault. He ran for 200 yards. There's not much more you can ask from a running back in that situation. But they found a way to win, which they're going to have to continue to do because I'm sure there's some teams knocking on the door of right behind them for that 12th spot essentially. So
Yeah, I mean, you still got
the
Memphis at
the
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 top.
pressure's on the pressure's on Boise State. So I mean,
It absolutely is. Um, as far as other games go, Pittsburgh lost a second game of the season. They were previously a one-loss team. They lost. They decided to go lose to Virginia while they were at home.
pretty sure they started out what 7-0, 8-0, and lost two straight now.
Yeah, they're 7-0 and lost two straight, I believe, and or maybe they were 6-0, lost one, won one, lost one. But yeah, they're kind of wheels are might not have fallen off yet, but they're starting to rattle.
I think it
Uh
just goes to show. I mean, they didn't Pitt didn't play anyone good at the beginning of the season, and that's why they were
no.
undefeated.
Oh, also, SMU is like officially number one in the SEC or in the ACC right now with the Miami
Yes,
loss.
and Clemson is actually number two.
That's
Fun
crazy
fact.
talk. Yeah, that's nuts. Uh, that'll be interesting. I'd love. I think
Because
kind of
Clemson
want to see
has
like
two
a
two
SMU in the playoffs.
losses. I was looking at this. Clemson has two losses, but one was to Georgia, so that's non-conference. And they both have one conference loss, but I think somehow Clemson holds the tiebreaker over Miami. And then SMU has one loss, but that was to BYU, who isn't in conference. So they're undefeated in conference play. So
Right.
they can SMU technically can be a top four team in the playoffs.
Pony Express, baby.
That's where we're at right now. And actually, what's even crazier is Clemson could find their way to play in that conference championship game and be a top four team with two losses. So
That'd be nuts. That'd be really crazy. Speaking of Clemson, they got it done. They covered. Had a good bounce back game. 24-14 against or on the road at Virginia Tech. I mean, not the flashiest win by any sorts, but after coming off a bad game last week, definitely good to get back on track right there. And like you said, be potentially like they could be playing for a top four seed as a two-loss team, which I mean, last year you obviously would have never happened, but
Because like what are they ranked?
they were 23rd
Are they
last
are they
week.
in the yeah, I was about to say, weren't they in the 20s?
Looks like they're 20 now. They jumped three
So yeah,
spots.
you're talking about someone in a matter of a couple weeks from now that's ranked 20 could
Right.
technically be a top 4 team and have a bye in the playoffs. That's where we're at in this
Hey, that's why I love
absolute.
the 12-team playoff format.
I swear, in the next like 2 weeks from now, whenever it's like Army Navy or something like that, and that's the only game going on, we're gonna have to do a whole playoff bracket just breakdown of what the hell is going on.
Absolutely. I would love that.
Or actually,
Stay tuned
we'd
for
probably
that.
want to do it conference championship week because there'll be less games, and
Right.
Tennessee could potentially not be playing, and then which hopefully they are. And on top of that, there's less games, and that's the last week before they decide on that Sunday. So yeah, stay tuned. Like we're gonna have to because it's somehow I thought we'd figured things out at this point in the season, but I'm more confused than we were in the preseason.
I'm way more confused. Yeah, this is nuts, but I'm here
Yeah.
for it. I mean, this is what college football is all about. Really only two more games I'd like to just touch on right before we get into week 12. Boston College got it done. They uh, they got the win at home against Syracuse, which isn't a bad team by any means. That helped our parlay, but unfortunately, LSU and Georgia both kind of screwed the pooch on that one. And then Vanderbilt crashing back to earth against South Carolina. Like I think you kind of called it last week. South Carolina just played like the better. They were the better team. I think the Vandy season kind of peaked at the Bama win. Didn't they have one more big win after that?
They beat Kentucky at Kentucky and then
Yeah, but definitely peaked
lost to
after the
Texas
Bama
by
win.
3.
Right.
I mean, it seems like Diego Pavia has some off the field stuff that, I mean, I don't want to say it's distracting him from playing well or anything like that, but with it seems like it's I don't know if you've seen this whole eligibility situation.
No.
So he's deemed ineligible next year, like done with college football. But he tried to file a restraining order against the NCAA, so they couldn't do it, which is crazy. I've never seen this move done before. And then they didn't get the restraining order passed. So right now, it does not seem like Diego Pavia has any more eligibility left. If he does, Vandy might be a little bit scary next year, just because him
Right.
coming back and
Returning.
they could probably get some guys to transfer in and play with him.
Yeah. Absolutely. I
But
like
I don't.
Pavia. That's a little weird though.
I that's what I'm wondering if like between that whole thing going on behind the scenes, I wonder if things are kind of tampering down over in Nashville just to get the season over with. I don't know. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah. Who knows? Well, I'm ready to get into week 12 if you are, and I'll let you kick that off. I don't think there's too many big games this week besides us, so we can maybe just speed
No,
through this one a little bit.
kind of a crappy week of football coming up. But
Yeah.
I said this earlier in the season is the weeks that seem like they're going to be really crappy are the ones that end up being the craziest. So there'll probably be some unranked team that beats a highly ranked opponent, which
Mercer and
I
Alabama,
guess
I'm calling it right
The Mercer Bears are 10-1 in the FCS play. I just want to put that out there.
now.
Not that they have any shot against the Crimson Tide, but
No, not at all.
go Mercer for this weekend. Yeah, Bama should win that one. We'll go past that. I guess first one I'd like to note would probably be uh, Wisconsin, Oregon. I don't know what time they kick off. Is that a noon game?
It is not. It's a
It
night
might be
game.
3:30. It's a night game.
Yeah, 7:30.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Oregon having to play on the road at night?
And jump around.
They're going to jump around. That's all right. I think Oregon opened as like 14-point favorites or something like that. I was looking at earlier today. I could see it happening. Oregon's played really, really well. Don't get me wrong. And really
I
nothing
like
they've
it.
done on the field. Nothing they've done on the field should really tell you like they're going to get upset. But they're the only team that's holding out on this whole. I mean, obviously there's 4 undefeated teams, but Oregon's number 1 team in the country. They've held that number 1
Right.
spot for a while. I feel like they're due for a loss sooner or later, whether that be in the conference championship or hell, maybe this weekend. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and call a Wisconsin win, but if Wisconsin wins, we're definitely coming back here on the show next week, and I'll be like, I told you so.
Yeah, I mean, I like Oregon. I've made some decent money off of them this year, betting on their spreads and them covering. But if you, I'm not going to be upset at all by any means about a undefeated team losing. So, I mean, all it does is help Tennessee's chances at that point.
I mean, if Oregon loses this weekend and Tennessee wins, we're going to be moving very,
Yeah, big time.
very high.
Absolutely. Um, yeah, so next game, I'll take the next game. You got Texas Arkansas is a new game. That's probably the first big game of the day. We took Texas to cover the spread,
I
correct?
got them at minus 12.5. I don't know what it's
Okay.
currently at.
ESPN has it at -12, but that probably just depends on where you're looking.
Right.
So hasn't moved much since then. They are at Arkansas, but during the day, seems like Arkansas won their Super Bowl whenever they played us. I mean, I think Texas goes in there and gets it done by multiple possessions. I like that pick.
Good for the parlay. If somehow, some way, if Arkansas beat Texas, I would not be the slightest bit upset because that would
No, not at
open
all.
a very, very large door for Tennessee and also make the Arkansas loss look not as bad. So
Absolutely. I
if
mean,
if it's a close game in the fourth quarter, I'm probably rooting for Arkansas. So
we'd probably jump Texas, and yeah, the Arkansas loss wouldn't look that bad. And we should jump Texas. They'd have 2 losses, you know?
yeah, they would.
So I guess woo pig this week.
But if it's like a 10-point game in the fourth quarter, we want to cover. So for the sake of betting,
Right. That's true. Yeah. Money. We're hedging our bets. That's what we're doing right now. It's just on one side we're gonna make some money. On the other side, we just don't want them to lose by like 3, which is probably what's gonna happen now.
oh yeah, if Arkansas covers, that would just hurt my feelings because then
Other than
nobody
that, you
wins.
have a couple other good games if you're looking to watch early during the day. Utah, who just gave BYU a big scare, plays number 17 Colorado, so that one could be exciting. Seems like there's always some fireworks going on around Colorado, especially if they're losing. I'm sure Utah's pissed
Colorado
off at this point.
technically is not out of the playoff race right now either. They
I
have a
mean, I'm
chance
sure
to
they
go
could
play for it.
still, yeah, the Big 12 championship.
Yep.
Yeah, so it could happen. That's right. I mean, that game has implications. And then, other than that, as far as early games go, you have number 20 Clemson at Pittsburgh. We'll really see if the wheels are falling off or not. But it is an ACC matchup. I think Clemson probably wins. Where are they at right now? Clemson by 11 and a
I
half.
mean,
I'd probably take it.
Clemson now knows that they're number 2 in their conference. They're
Right.
right back in this thing, so they're gonna lock in and probably beat the absolute crap out of Pitt if I was to if I was to guess.
I agree. I think that's probably what's going to happen. Well, let's see. What else we got? 3:30. You got Virginia at number 8 Notre Dame. Virginia's coming off a big win. So, you think anything interesting could happen in that game?
Notre
No.
Dame, no, Notre Dame is
Yeah,
not
probably
playing
not.
around right now. That they know that if anyone gives them a chance to boot them out of the playoffs, people will take it. People are not very highly
People don't like Notre
People
Dame.
don't think. No, I mean, I can speak for myself. I'm not a huge Notre Dame fan, so
No. Join a conference. That's all I'm
join a
going to say.
conference. That's right. That's right.
Uh, Boston College at SMU. That one's going to be a tough one because I like both teams. I do. Uh, SMU probably wins, though. They're at home. Hate to.
Yeah.
But I'd like to see Boston College go out there and put up a good fight. It's 20.5. I could see Boston College covering.
If this
Even
was
if
at
SMU
BC,
wins.
if this was at BC, it'd be a little bit more spicy of a game, in my opinion. I think SMU's been an absolute wagon this year for whatever
Right.
reason. So
Telling you, you let them pay players again. They got in trouble in the 80s for paying the players, buying them the cars, and now all
well,
of a sudden it's legal again.
there's a
Hey,
lot of money out in Dallas. Is that where they're at? I think they're in Dallas.
they're somewhere in they're in Dallas.
So
That was like Eric Dickerson, I believe, and stuff in college.
it's right
So
down the street from Jerry. Right down the street from Jerry's World.
yeah, it is. Um, Besides that, though, I mean, like we were saying earlier, it's kind of a lackluster week. You have LSU at Florida. I guess that game could go either way. I kind of like, from a Tennessee standpoint, maybe want Florida to win. So LSU,
We sure do. We
yeah,
as a Tennessee fan, we are rooting for Florida to win in the swamp this week against LSU because if we can at least we want as many teams to get out of this
jumble.
tiebreaker as possible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. So hopefully Florida wins that one. They're currently 3.5 point dogs. If you're
I don't. Are
if
they
you're a betting
expected to
man,
get? Are they expected to get Lagway back for this game?
all right. So yeah, as of 1 hour ago on the Gator Talk coaches show, after missing last week's loss to Texas with a hamstring injury, DJ Lagway will return to the field for Saturday's contest against LSU, per Billy Napier. So if you didn't listen to Gator Talk, you heard it here first.
Um, yeah, this is not GatorTalk.com or whatever the hell you just said, but good for Lagway. That gives him a much better chance to win against LSU this weekend.
Yeah, I wouldn't be
Dave,
surprised if lines started moving. I'd probably, if you want to take Florida, probably go ahead and take them.
I mean, Florida's played better as the season's gotten on. I mean, they kind of
Which is,
reverse what they normally do.
yeah, uncharacteristic for Florida. Uh, I don't know, but we definitely want Florida to win. That's all I know.
Yeah, that'd be huge. That'd be really big.
Right. Just
Then we're
moving
talking. We're getting that. That means we'd be getting a lot closer to potentially clinching a
big time.
conference championship appearance, especially with the win and them losing. There wouldn't be many tiebreakers. I think we would lose. So
Yeah. And hey, that happens before our game, so it'll be nice to know kind of going into the game, especially if
yeah,
Florida
yeah.
wins. Uh, Other than that, though, really the only other game that's even worth mentioning today is just number 23 Missouri at number 21 South Carolina. Doesn't really have playoff implications. Doesn't really have SEC conference championship implications, but I don't know. You have a team
You
that was
say that
supposed to be really good. You have a team that's kind of been overperforming.
You say that, but a delusional Eli Drinkwitz says that they're still in the middle of the playoff race and conference championship
No,
race.
not.
So technically, on paper, they are, but
They're
they're going to
seventh in
need
the SEC. It's 7-2. They have to win out too.
they're going to need a lot of things to go their way. I personally do not think this is going to happen. I'm just quoting the man who stands on business himself, Eli Drinkwitz. So
I hate him. Don't hate. I don't hate. That's a strong word. I don't hate anybody. I dislike Eli Drinkwitz. Yeah, but
we very much dislike him a lot.
we do. Yeah, so then we can watch the Vols win. You got BYU after dark against Kansas. If you want to watch that, if you're looking for something to watch, I will personally
Probably
probably
root.
be. I either won't be awake if I'm smart and do what I'm supposed to do because I'll have work the next morning, or I'll be watching UFC at that point because it's
John
John
Jones.
Jones. Yeah.
Yeah, so with all that being said, I think we're going to finish up today's episode with our parlay of the week. So I'm going to share my screen. We're doing 3 legs this week because one leg is an absolute unit of a leg of plus 295. That being the Tennessee Vols pull, I guess you call it an upset due to the Vegas odds, but they are the higher ranked team, so I really don't
Book it.
know how to explain that. But yeah, and then Boise State on the road at San Jose State. I think they have a good bounce back week, win by at least 13.5. And then the Texas Longhorns against the Arkansas Razorbacks, minus 12.5. Texas, I think, takes care of business. I think the odds are, I think it's kind of hidden in this picture, plus 1327.
I like it. I like
So
it a lot.
do with that as you wish. But yeah, I think that's all for episode 20. Hopefully, we'll see y'all next week after a big win against the Georgia Bulldogs. Make sure to follow us and listen and like and subscribe on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Spotify, and Twitter or X. And we'll see you next week. So thank you for listening.
Take it easy.